How are you guys? Welcome back to Wargaming China, and today I'm going to talk about the Thornycroft coastal motorboat in Chinese service. Well, you're looking at a coastal motorboat CMB 102 or 107. Haven't finished the crew yet, and I've got to find out where to put the numbers on. Now, I'm going to talk about it in Chinese service, the CMB, Thornycroft CMB, but it's such a long story, and I found it such an interesting one that, because while I build these, I'm always looking at pictures and sources, and then finally when I do build something, like today I'm going to platform some ideas, I often get a lot of feedback on previous subjects. So, hopefully I might get some feedback today, which would be great. Now, Robert White invented the first, what we would call, automotive or automobile torpedo, which is a self-propelled torpedo. Now, he developed that in 1868, and he improved his design over the next couple of years. By 1870, the Royal Navy had a look at his Whitehead torpedo, and they bought the rights to manufacture. So in 1870, the Royal Navy are mounting torpedoes, or have bought the rights to mount torpedoes and use torpedoes, the Whitehead torpedo. Now, they needed a delivery system for these torpedoes, obviously, and the name that they looked at was Thornycroft. Now, Thornycroft got into this business because she was already making power boats. Now, from 1870 until 1877, the RN and Thornycroft worked on the design, and in 1877 they delivered HMS Lightning, and she was the first sea-going torpedo boat, with a decent range. However, within a year, France launched her first torpedo boat. Now, by the 1880s, torpedo boat mania had hit Europe, and the French had literally stuffed all their channel ports with French torpedo boats. And in the advent of war, the French just planned to nip across the channel and sink the English fleets in its various harbours. However, the RN, the Royal Navy, took a bit of a longer look at it than most people, and they decided that the current boats had too many limitations to spend on with a limited budget. So, because you must remember that these boats are very unreliable engines and were steam powered. So it wasn't until the advent of petrol engines that you see the boats becoming faster, but also more reliable. Now, the Italians, with their flair for speed and engines, managed to make, in 1906, launched named the first what we might call proper MTB, and she was armed with a 47mm gun, 2 machine guns, and 2 14-inch torpedoes. She had 2 inline petrol engines, and she could do 16 knots. Now, these boats, they shook up the naval establishments of a lot of nations, because it was not only the sheer speed that attacks could be delivered with, it was how affordable these forces could be. These forces were very, very affordable when you compared them to battleships. So, again, until World War I, the Royal Navy just kind of hovered on the outside of torpedo boat development. But by 1915, the Royal Navy had decided exactly what she wanted. She wanted a torpedo boat that could be launched from a cruiser if necessary. So the dimensions had to be 40 feet long to fit between the davits on the ship that would haul the boat up. The weight could not be over 4.5 tons. She had to handle heavy water, heavy seas, and she had to be capable of 33 knots. Now, Thornycroft again were the only boat builder that even wanted to touch this project. Now, believe it or not, forward firing torpedoes were not that easy to launch with shipbuilding and technology as it was in the interwar era in World War I and World War II. So Thornycroft came out with their boat. Now the Thornycroft boat was made totally of American L, imported American L. She was launched her torpedoes from the stern. She was capable of carrying depth charges or mines. Now in the early models, the first models, there was only one torpedo carried. So the 40-foot models, only one torpedo. 4.5 tons, 40 foot long. And it's obviously a side armament of 2 Lewis machine guns. Now, as I was saying, there were found to be limitations with the one torpedo load, but the design of the boat that Thornycroft had come up with, the whole design, would influence many nations' MTB boats to come. In fact, the Russians, who would suffer from the CMB itself, I'll get back to the Russians. So anyway, the CMB at 40 foot served the Royal Navy well. Come 1917, the Royal Navy said, you know what, we want a 55-foot boat. We want a bit of a faster engine, and we're going to deliver 2 torpedoes, carry depth charges, be capable of laying mines, and have an armament of 2 Lewis guns for defence. And Thornycroft again were the only one who looked at the project and go, now you want 2 in the back of the boat. And Thornycroft again were the only one game enough to take on this design. And as I said, the hull, they extended. And the reason that the hull of the Thornycroft was so good was in the original plans by the Admiralty, the boat had to be hauled up on ships. So this meant that they built the hull extremely strong. The hull was extremely strong. And when they designed the 55-foot boat, they didn't really change any of the layout of the hull. It was just longer, the dimensions just changed up with the length. And so the hull was just a superb hull. Now, they served in World War I everywhere. The 40 foot and 55 foot Thornycroft served everywhere, like Azerbaijan, Zeebrugge, and after the war, when the interventionist forces were trying to were backing the whites in Russia, Thornycroft would again be in action at Kronstadt, and at Kronstadt, Lieutenant Arger would win the VC for sinking a battleship. I think it was the Oleg, and then a couple of weeks later, he was back to sink another ship and get the DSO. The Thornycroft in World War I established itself as a very reliable weapon, and it was still in service into war with many navies, including the Royal Navy, obviously the Chinese Navy, and the Russians. As I said, they had captured a few, and they put 2 boats in service, 2 designs that were, the first one was the S4, which was basically just a copy with American engines of the Thornycroft, and the second one, First one was the S4, the second one was the G5, and that just kept the same hull and basically the same layout but different Russian armaments, and again American engines. 60 of those were built. Now, the CMB in service with China. See, I told you I'd finally get to it in service with China. Now, I built this model because I've always loved this Thornycroft CMB. Now, I usually build my models to get on the table, as you know. But this one, I just always admired it, and it was a very good building challenge. I tried to build one last year and totally failed. So this was my second effort. So I can't tell you how many Thornycroft coastal motorboats were in service in China. But thanks to Hongbo Guo and his group, World War II Asian Chinese Far East Front, I can tell you that there was a flotilla at the Yang Gao Qin Squadron of the Electric Mine School. So, sorry, thanks to Mr. Hongbo Guo, I love your site, mate. When Tianxiang and Yang Gao Qin squadrons of the Electric Mining School, and there was also the Jiangyin Torpedo Academy, and I don't think there was any Gaijins there. So extrapolating from that, we know there were at least 6 in Chinese service up until August 1937. Now the funny thing is, in 1939, the Royal Navy approached the Chinese and brought back 4 Thornycroft coastal motorboats. Now these motorboats would be deployed to Hong Kong, and they would take part in the defense of Hong Kong against the Japanese invasion. And at Kowloon, the motor torpedo boat squadrons of the Royal Navy attacked the Japanese landing craft on the water, and the MTBs of the Royal Navy were under fire from 3 sides, on the ground, and as well as from the air. Casualties were 40%, and indeed, you should look it up and read about it, because it is the Royal Navy's been around a very long time, but it must be the Royal Navy's ultimate charge of the Light Brigade. So if you look that up, Defence of Hong Kong, well worth reading about. Now, brings us back to China. So as I said, I can't tell if there was more than 6, but at least I can tell you the names of some of the flotillas that operated them. Now, this is CMP 102 or 107, She 102 or 107 of the Jiangyin Torpedo Academy. Now, on the night of the 16th of August, I have to remember the chap's name, because such a brave man has to be remembered. Where's my notes? I've got it somewhere. Sorry, man. Just have a look at the ship. So the boat, handmade from wood, card, builder's bog, which is a timber bog, paper clips for the mine launchers, for the depth charge launchers, shapeways torpedoes, everything else just from, you know me, whatever I see lying around. The guns are shapeways too. Okay, both. I'm going to read it straight out to you. Okay, easier. On the night of 14th of August, S102, Shi102 under Hu Jingrui and Shai 171 under Liu Gongdai. Their boat disguised as an ordinary motorboat. Now, at this point, I would really like to thank Raymond Chung, who sent me a picture of, he shared a picture online on Kungbo's group of the CMBs in disguise, what their disguise was. So they played over this with timber. It must have been a light timber, and the same at the front. And it was a pretty good disguise. You know, you would have to look at it 3 times to see, oh, that could be an own vessel. Even, it looks like they even tried to break up the outline of the hull. I'm very grateful for that Raymond Chung. So unfortunately I didn't have access to that picture before I built my CMB, but could be in the future. So written reports say that, and the book I just read from, sorry, is Benjamin Lai's Shanghai and Nanjing, 1937, from Osprey. It's a very good book actually. But Benjamin Lai's done a good job. So in the artist's illustration of this on page 39, the layout isn't, I mean it's good, but it's confusing because I mean this, you've got to remember the 55 footers, by the time the 30s had come, the design had evolved and layouts could differ a lot, but always the torpedoes came out the stern. Now, during their approach to Shanghai on August the 16th, the 2 captains set out to sink the Izumo. Now there we have the Yamato, but I don't have the Izumo. It's the only Japanese ship I've got. So let's have a look at how the Thornycroft launches its torpedoes. 18-inch torpedoes doing that could do 35 knots. Okay, so the boat approaches the target. A detonator, which seems to be a pistol, ignites an hydraulic ram. The hydraulic ram pushes the torpedoes off. A lanyard comes from the boat to the head of the torpedo. When the lanyard is taut, it snaps and arms the torpedo, and the boat turns away, and the torpedoes pick up speed and head to the target. Now, there were 3 different explanations of how this was done, but for me, it doesn't sound like an easy operation, and it must have made it quite hair-raising to have a torpedo capable of 35 knots coming after you as you turned away. Now, the attack that night on the 16th was a failure. One boat, they sent 2 boats. The 2 boats had to, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you will notice that I've always talked about the waterways and channels of Shanghai. So they couldn't approach up the main rivers. So they had to go very slowly and with a lot of knowledge too, because those channels would be changing with the rain and the weather. What they could have got through last week would not be necessarily what you get through this week. So a lot of knowledge before they could finally moor on the night of during the day on the 15th and liaise with the army about and identify where the target was and make a plan of attack. Now, only 1 boat went in, and that was Shai 102 under Captain Hu Jingrui. Now, Captain Rui launched his attack. Now, I want to talk now about how difficult this attack is. It's not simply an attack on a ship. Whereas most attacks in the World War II, like a night attack, requiring great daring to get there, you would require a quiet night. This is Whampoa River. This is a very busy stretch of waterway. It's chockers with the Japanese Navy. It's chockers with foreign navies who are there, who have been dispatched there by their governments because of the fighting. It's also chock with civilian vessels and smaller Japanese craft. The Japanese are constantly patrolling the air and checking the wharves and the docks. And for this operation, you're literally talking under the Japanese noses just to get to Shanghai itself and liaise with the army. And then the final approach at night, heading into a harbour that's, into a moorage zone onto the Wampa River, very well lit, lots of activity around, and then when you've laid your torpedoes, when you sent your torpedoes in, that's the easy bit, isn't it? Because now, and I love small boats, so now Captain Hu Jingrui is going to have to floor it, and he's going to be navigating through intensely crowded waterways, and he's going to be doing it at 35 knots. He's also going to be doing it while every vessel in the Japanese Navy's, every Japanese vessel in his proximity is firing at him. So he got away, and they did lose the boat. They seem to have dragged it, heavily damaged to some part on the shore, hid during the day, and then have collected their weapons, rendezvoused back at the boat, collected weapons, and then made their way to the Chinese lines. So there you go. There's the CMB, the Thornycroft motorboat. The 55-foot model, 88 were built. They served in Chinese service, and ex-Chinese ones served with the Royal Navy. So remember, this is Shanghai, 1937. And the Chinese Navy is in action against the Japanese Navy, and it will be until 1945, because the Chinese sailor, just like the Chinese soldier, fought with the least for the longest against the Japanese. Now, I hope you like that. If you want to let me know, hit like. If you want to subscribe, that'd be great. If you want to I'm thinking about doing a basic landing craft build. I'll buy the materials and I'll do that live reviews. I don't know if you'd like that. So let me know. Bye.